Hello everyone, and welcome to Thick on Top. Today I'll be telling my story about my 1-year journey on finasteride. Now keep in mind, a little disclaimer here, I am not a doctor, I'm not a dermatologist. If you need medical advice, please seek out a medical professional. Now for those of you who don't know what finasteride is, there's an enzyme in our body called 5-alpha reductase. 5-alpha reductase mixes with testosterone and the end result is DHT. Now DHT is obviously very bad for our hair follicles. When there's DHT on our scalp and in our hair follicles, it can damage the hair follicles, slow or even end hair growth altogether. Finasteride blocks 5-alpha reductase, so therefore it never really has the opportunity to mix with testosterone. The end result is a great decrease in DHT on the scalp and in the hair follicles. When you're taking finasteride, it normally takes about 4 to 6 months to really take effect. In some men, it may take up to a year. Now, I started losing my hair when I was 20, and I started taking finasteride 4 months after I first noticed it. I took finasteride for a little over a year, and I'm honestly not quite sure how well the finasteride was working for me, but I definitely know that just doing something for my hair definitely made a difference. Just kind of the stress levels, not worrying about as much, knowing that I was doing something. However, I'm not exactly sure how well it was working because, like I said, I wasn't noticing too great of results. So I started noticing a decrease in my libido about 3 to 4 months after taking finasteride, and it didn't really scare me too much right at the beginning. I didn't worry too much about it. I had been on finasteride for about 10 months when I got married in August of 2018. And that's when I really started to get scared. And that's really what motivated me to want to quit. Now, I read up on some studies that say if you're noticing some negative side effects from finasteride that you want to avoid just going cold turkey, you don't want to stop all at once, you want to start weaning yourself off. Give yourself about 45 days to completely wean yourself off. And that's what I did. However, I was scared to initially start weaning myself off because I didn't know if I was receiving benefits from finasteride. So that's when I started figuring out these natural remedies. And my plan was, and I successfully executed this plan, was to get myself in full swing on a natural program. All these natural ways that don't have side effects on how I can stop my hair loss, get that routine in full swing, and then start to wean off of finasteride. And I did exactly that. Now, for those of you who are kind of new to this channel, that's the whole point to this channel, is to show all the struggling men out there a solution that doesn't have negative side effects. Now, if you do your own research on finasteride, you will find mountains of data out there, especially if you spend any time on hair loss forums, which I highly recommend avoiding because hair loss forums are full of people in desperation, almost losing hope, full of negativity. You'll hear stories of good and the bad, horror stories that will completely scare you, and I just highly recommend staying away from them. Now, like I said before, I'm not a doctor, but I've done more research than I care to admit, and here's the pros and the cons that I have found with finasteride. Yes, it actually does work for a lot of men. So finasteride is going to help stop the conversion of testosterone to DHT. Now, many men, if you read studies and hair loss forums, they report that finasteride greatly slowed their hair loss. Some even report that it completely stopped it in their tracks for years. And if you keep reading, you'll find some amazing success stories where it reversed their hair loss. Their hairline started to grow back. The crown of their head started to replenish with hair, and it's their saving grace. Now, I have many friends that I've discussed this with that are either taking finasteride or have taken finasteride that had good results and never ever noticed a side effect, not once. Now for the cons of finasteride. Most of the studies that you'll read up on, only about 2% of men on finasteride will experience side effects. Now, these side effects are sexual in nature for the most part, And of course, the most talked about one is lowering your sex drive or your libido. Now, in 95% of the cases where people had side effects, when they got off of finasteride, their libido or sex drive returned right back to normal within a couple of months, usually about 2 months, and they were fine. They were back to normal as if nothing had ever really happened. But there's a very small percentage of men that when they take finasteride, they report that it took months, a year, or even multiple years to return back to where they once were before they took finasteride. However, some men report that their libido dropped, and even after they came off of finasteride, that it never went back up, that their sex drive has stayed low for years, and that they blame finasteride for wiping out their libido. Now, it's important to know that some men in these studies were also taking other drugs at the time that had the potential side effect for low libido. Now, that's important because the more medications that you're taking at one time that have the same potential side effect, well, the odds go even more and more against you. So to conclude, finasteride will be wonderful for most men. 98% of men, according to most studies, will never ever see any side effects whatsoever. You need to decide what your priorities are. Is it worth taking the risk? For me, it wasn't. That's the whole reason for this entire channel, is to teach you the natural way to stop your hair loss, so that way you don't have to risk this. I want to share my discoveries with all the men out there that are currently struggling with hair loss. And if you like what you've heard today, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can be notified anytime I post a new video. Also, if there's any topics you'd like me to cover in the next videos, please leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll do my very best to get to it in the next videos. Thank you for watching Thick on Top. See you next time.